Hello, and welcome to the Coach Right podcast, where we explore how to turn coaching expertise into published pages. I'm your host, Helen O'Neill, portfolio career specialist, author, and creator of Coach Right, the writing space and program specifically designed for coaches. You can get the episode show notes and your free guide to publishing options at coachright.co.uk. It's time for the next chapter. Welcome to the Coach Right podcast. I'm your host, Helen O'Neill, and this is episode 32. A little while ago, I committed to bringing you interviews with author service providers who might be useful on your writing and publishing journey. And today I am delighted to say that we have the first of those episodes, as I'm joined by Martin Cavannagh, Head of Content at Reedsy. We're going to be talking about Reedsy themselves, of course, and what they do, but particularly how they support authors. Martin shares his insight into what we need to think about as authors from a content perspective, and he and I put the world to rights about AI. I'm sure you'll find it useful. It's time for the next chapter. Welcome to the Coach Right podcast. My guest today is Martin Cavannagh. Martin is Head of Content for Reedsy, with well over a decade of experience in content strategy, editorial development, and author education. He's the host of Reedsy Live and has interviewed and collaborated with hundreds of editors, book designers, and marketing specialists, translating industry expertise into actionable guidance. Welcome to the show, Martin.
Pleased to be here, Helen. Always good to meet another nominally Irish person that isn't perhaps Irish, but very glad to have met you about a month ago, was it, at the self-publishing show here in London?
It was indeed. Absolutely. So yes, thank you for letting me commandeer you and invite you on the show, and for being our first guest from a author services organisation.
Such a wide range of people to choose from. I'm flattered.
I know. Well, only the best for the Coach Right podcast. So if we can start by telling us a bit more about you and your path to publishing.
Well, yes, Helen, as you mentioned, I am a sort of a marketing professional. I've worked in marketing for perhaps like over a decade now. And like everyone in marketing, of course, didn't actually start off wanting to do marketing. I don't think any 17-year-old child wakes up and goes, oh, God, I wish they let me write some blog posts in the future. But my story starts, I guess, after university. My goal was always to be a filmmaker. So I moved down from Edinburgh to London to work in film. And naturally, working in the arts means that I held about 3 jobs at any given time, mostly working in pubs. I ran pub quizzes all around town. For a short period of time, I was doing the quiz at Ian McKellen's pub in Limehouse, which was an unusual treat. But on top of that, I started working at a video on demand company that is now defunct. Back when people used to pay money to rent videos online, I sort of parlayed that job ingesting content, as it was called, into, you know what, I like films, I can write. I'd love to write your blog for you. So I pitched that to the bosses there at the startup, and they went, okay, yeah, give it a go, and created a blog there talking about films, about new releases, and started what was the beginning of my content marketing career, I suppose. And a few years after that, and a couple of defunct companies later, I ended up at Reedsy, which is a really, really great place to be. It was working in publishing. I never really worked in that space before, but it's sort of along the lines of stuff I knew about. We're talking a lot about story, talking a lot about working with people. So yeah, cut to 10 years later, I've just been here watching the company grow, helping build the community, and and talking to fine people such as yourself, Helen.
Amazing. And the reason that I wanted to invite you and obviously representing Reedsy onto the show is a lot of people that I've interviewed have got to the point where they need an editor, normally is that first point, and they go, I went on Fiverr, I Googled it, I couldn't find what I needed, and then I stumbled across Reedsy. So for those that aren't familiar with what Reedsy do, can you tell us a bit more about the services, please?
Oh, very happy to. Reedsy, as we like to say, is the world's premier marketplace for publishing talent. So whether you need an editor, book cover designer, a marketer, translator, ghostwriter, you can find the best ones here. Of course, I would say they're the best, but we are the company that goes out and finds them and vets all of these editors and designers to make sure that all of them have the experience that they need. So most of them will come from traditional publishing. Editors in particular for at least the last 10, 15 years, even if they edit traditionally published books for big 5 publishers, they will be freelance. And those companies don't necessarily like to have a big in-house crew anymore. But a lot of those editors also have grown tired of all the meetings they're expected to do during the day if they're, an editor at a publisher. So here at Reedsy, they're able to find and work with authors directly, cut out all the admin and meetings and marketing meetings, and just do more of what they like. So it's the place where you can come and find people who have the experience to actually help you put out the book you need. So who have the experience within your genre, for example. Like if you're putting out a nonfiction book on how to, let's say, improve one's coaching career, you might be able to find people who have worked on similar titles, the sort of best-selling titles in your niche, who know exactly what the readers need to see and hear and read.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's always, I think, quite daunting when you're at that early stage and you're trying to create your team. What advice do you have for people that are at that stage and are looking at kind of how to select someone to work with, how to budget, all of that good stuff?
Yeah, I'd say it's always good to, as you say, know the budget you have to work with at the start. I think people are always quite reluctant to mention that to anyone they're working with. You contact an editor and like one of the first things they may ask is, what is your budget? And naturally you're thinking, it's like, well, they're just waiting for me to say my budget. And then they'll say, oh, yeah, that's exactly how much it costs. But very often it'll help save time to figure out whether, you will be able to fit into exactly what they charge, or they may even be able to help point you towards someone that's more within your price range. So, knowing your budget and actually openly sharing that with these professionals is helpful. It'll save you a lot of time. The other thing I would sort of look out for is to pay close attention to communication style. Most of the time, you kind of do want to have someone with, a lot of glittering credits within your space, but this is creative collaboration, whether you're talking about an edit or someone designing your cover. It is quite an intimate, personal relationship, and to have someone who sort of is on your wavelength can really help. So some people do need someone to come and, say, savage your manuscript and tear it apart and put it back together and be told exactly what it needs. Other people, may need a gentle hand, will want someone who's more like a teacher. And so on our profiles, I think a load of our editors and designers will give a hint as to what sort of person they are, and to pay attention to that moreover than someone with, all the laurels that you'd hope for your own book.
Yeah, I'm laughing as you say that, because when I chose my editor, I was like, just tell it to me straight.
Yeah.
I want to know everything that's wrong. Don't sugarcoat it. Just tell me, because if it's too nice, I'll think you've not looked at it closely enough.
Yeah.
But I can completely understand how other people might need that slightly softer approach.
Yeah. A little bit of self-awareness goes a long way when it comes to putting this together. I think to know exactly what you respond best to, it is a good place to start.
Yeah, very much so. In coaching, we often have discovery calls with potential clients, and it's a very similar matching process in that sense. You've obviously got the accreditation or the qualifications that the person has, but then you've also got that, can I work with them? Does their style align to mine? Even sort of how they feed back to you and what they feed back to you is so important. And I know when I chose my editor, we did a sample chapter.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. It's something that a lot of editors will offer, and it's always worth seeing. You will be submitting a chapter somewhere from your manuscript when you're hiring an editor. But very often we suggest to the editors that they get the author to send something from the middle of the book.
Yeah.
Because they want to get a good idea of exactly what state your manuscript is in so that they can budget their time accordingly. Very often, they will find that the author has worked on their first chapter so much that it is actually in a very good state. And they'll look at the first chapter and go, okay, yeah, this doesn't look like a lot of work. And then once they get into chapter 3, they realize, oh my God, I've made a mistake. And they have to go back and maybe renegotiate some of the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the other question that comes up a lot, particularly in the editing space, but also in some of the other areas like cover design, is why would we use a human editor these days and not just use AI?
Yeah.
What's your perspective?
I mean, it's very, very tempting. There's, on the surface of it, if you're fairly new to it, the feedback you can get from an AI on an edit sounds pretty close to what you get from a human, and it costs nothing. So I can absolutely empathize with that one. But there are a few elements to it. The human editor will ideally know the space you're working for. They will know those readers and will have a better perspective of what works, what can help you get through to those readers, or if you're looking to get published traditionally, they have a better idea of what editors and publishers are looking for in there. And they are better at, we say, that human element, that working with the author of teaching you. As much as anything, you can think of editorial as a product. I just want my manuscript to be put through this machine and come back on the other side better. But most of the people that our editors work with are fairly new. And so this is, as much as anything, a learning experience.
Yeah.
And to learn from an actual human is invaluable. Yeah. Then you talk about cover design. We used to run these cover design critiques where self-published authors would send in their self-made covers, and then we'd get a professional editor to critique them. And before it was like good earnest efforts made on Photoshop, which would all look kind of really bad because you don't really know how to use Photoshop. And so, it was easier for us to then go like, this obviously doesn't look like anything that's on the shelves. So you'll need to get a professional designer if you want something that can compete with things that traditional publishers are putting out. But these days, generative AI has gotten so good that, it no longer looks terrible. And that's the good thing. It no longer looks like a child has made it or your eager nephew has put it together as a favor. But we're still at the point where we know what they say about knowing just enough to be dangerous to yourself. This one, it will put together a cover that looks fairly nice, but probably at this point will look like so many other books going out on the market, especially if you're looking to appeal to people on Amazon. There is that AI aesthetic that it will just blend into. And also on top, the professional designers have worked in the industry towards the readers in that particular niche. They know what's trending right now. And a lot of what works as a cover design, as a product package is, 80% familiar, 20% new. Yeah. So whenever you look at like a thriller novel, for example, like there's a lot of things that look like Jack Reacher books. It's the silhouette of a man with his back to you and he's walking into a city. And you'll see a lot of thrillers who do have that. And that's just, an immediate indication to the readers like, oh, this is like that book. This is what you need to read. Whereas if you sort of leave it to AI, they probably would be able to do that 80% familiar. They'll just do you something that looks like a Jack Reacher novel. But to have that thing that gives you that unique branding that you want, that sort of extra something to stand out from those other Reacher clones, feels like that is something that you need a human touch for.
Yeah. It's so funny, isn't it? I think with cover design, I will normally use a little bit of AI, use a little bit of Canva, do a mock-up with a mood board, and then give all of that to a human and be like, be creative and make this good.
Yeah. Because there is that sort of element as well. That used to be our old problem. Because the cover designers, I think, have a good sense for what will work in the market, even if they haven't read your book.
Yeah.
First-time authors, we feel, because it is their baby. They've been living with it. They've imagined what it will look like. And one of the dangers is an author will go like, say, for example, we're doing a novel. I want the cover to be this scene. My protagonist is here. She's in a red dress. Then, of course, she's got her mother's necklace in here with these Japanese pearls. And, of course, in the background, there's a red Porsche. It needs to be a 911 from this particular year. And then they just start prescribing what they want to see that's been in their head that they want to download. Whereas usually the best value you'll find from a designer will be to tell them what your book is about, who it appeals to, what is sort of crucial to it, and let them come back with something. So, and one of the ways that, I can see that AI can be quite useful is in this sort of conceptualization phase. Before, designers would come back after a week and they'll pull together stock images and come together with a few concepts for you. And I think we're starting to see more designers, using generative AI to help put together these sort of mood boards, these sort of, conceptual designs that allows them to sort of do that quicker, get across to the client, what the possible avenues are. And then they can sort of pick from that one. So there is a place for AI in there, but you as a tool rather than as your creative director.
Yeah, I agree. It's a step in the process before you go to the human, I always find. And obviously, you are head of content, and a lot of people listening think, right, I'm going to write a book. I've probably got some sort of coaching program. I'm quite keen to leverage all of these assets as a way to generate visibility and kind of credibility in the market. What advice have you got for people that are looking to grow their platform?
Yeah, I suppose, to sort of know what your product is always helpful. Like in the nonfiction space, whenever we talk about nonfiction and self-publishing, it tends to be in that sort of a book that teaches you how to do something. And very much the case, I imagine, with a lot of the coaches you're talking to, the book itself is one lead collection tool, basically, if we're not just putting it too crassly.
Yeah, for sure.
And it is good to sort of think about where is your money coming from? Is it in the programs you're selling? Is it in creating leads, or finding the sort of executives, the sort of researchers that you want to be coaching? And so it is very much, as figuring out what problems do they have and how can I help them solve them. And very often, like, the book is just one part of that. Usually it should be a fairly substantial part of it, because you've gone to the effort of doing this, and hopefully the problem will be significant enough for your potential lead to want to potentially put a bit of money into buying it, into spending a better part of a week reading it. But everything that sort of works around that, like, is fairly essential to it. Put in a broad sense, if you're writing a book about growing cactuses in the United Kingdom, then you will go in and think, okay, who's going to be wanting to grow cactuses? Are these people who live in apartments? Are these people who live in small spaces? And then you can start thinking, like, if this is the case, then what else would they want? But you could probably do, look to go start a TikTok channel where you talk about, indoor ferns, about different types of soil, or, figuring out who your target audience is and all the potential problems they have that even feels like marginally tangential. Like, some of it is solving your problem. Some of it could be creating content that helps, identify their pain points. Like, that's what you're seeing quite a lot on Instagram and TikTok these days. People just want to be seen. And so creating content where you can empathize with them and, find their problem points, and if anything, just spell it out for them. That sort of puts you at the front of their mind when it comes to a person who might be an authority figure on this particular thing. And so for us at Reedsy, it always has been that. So to use our example, we are appealing to people who are ready to hire editors and book cover designers. And so we can create a lot of content that will appeal to them. If they're ready to use an editor, we will create content on how to find an editor. But then, we can't just stick with that. So we're also looking for to sort of broaden out and hit things that are sort of higher up in the funnel, as we might say. So we have a lot of content on our site that is how to write a novel. If you're Googling how to write a novel, chances are you're not going to be hiring an editor in 2 weeks' time. And so we create that content and capture their emails, as I'm sure you've been teaching everyone. Capture those leads, put them through your ecosystem. So we create all this other stuff that will sort of nurture them along the way. We have free courses. We have live webinars, which I run. We have emails that go out with tips. We have our book writing tool that we've created, with the idea being that we can capture people at any point in their journey and sort of actually help them along, educate them, and get them close to the point where they are ready to spend money on our business. And so for anyone out there, it's like, you can focus on the people who are ready to use you right now, or you can have your full spectrum program of free content. There's nothing quite so good as free, useful content that feels kind of non-mercenary. Having a bit of a light touch with your promotion is helpful. One of the things we've tried to do here at Reedsy is, whenever we have those things, we invite people along to free webinars. I don't start with like, we've got all this free stuff, but we've locked all these other bits behind this paywall, or access this by giving money. It's like that. We've realized that is not our primary revenue stream. We can't start our relationship with our key users by letting them know exactly how greedy we are for cash.
And what I love about that as well is there's an authenticity in that process, isn't there? It's come from a value add. And again, in the coaching space, there's often this sort of push-pull of feeling in that you obviously have to sell coaching services in order to have a business, in order to pay the bills. And yet nobody starts a coaching practice because they want to sell. They start a coaching practice because they want to support people in a transformation of some sort. And the alignment with what you've just spoken about, I think, plays very true in that, Reedsy exists to make money. It is an organisation that is profitable. And in order to do that, there is a wealth of value and content and support and community that will support people wherever they are in the process. And then when they're ready, they go, actually, Reedsy feels like a kind of organization that I want to work with.
Yeah. It's like the movie Inception. You can't force someone to need your product or service. But you can sort of put these things into motion so that they become the sort of person who needs your help or who realizes that they can actually benefit from your help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the other question that comes up a lot is, where do you start with this? Because obviously you've been at Reedsy for years. There's a well-oiled machine. You've got a team. Like, how does somebody that's going, okay, that's great, where do I start? What advice have you got for them?
Well, the editorial is always a good place to start, like, because at the very, very basic level, you need a good book. It can look great, it can be marketed well, but the book needs to, in order for it to succeed in any measure, it needs to be good enough for its target reader to want to read more, want to know more about you, or to recommend it to other people who would like it. And that all starts with the editorial. Talking to an editor who has worked on this sort of thing before, who can help you shape it into something that's amazing. No editor can, polish a turd, as they say. Because there's some bits that may be out of your control. You need to have it within you to sort of understand whether this thing you've written does what it needs to. And some of that requires that sort of self-reflection, but a lot of it can come from working with an editor who, if they're frank enough, can tell you this is what it needs to be, or this doesn't achieve what it needs to achieve. So that is your first point. And most time they can also give you advice. Once they start editing, they can tell you, do they think this can thrive in the open market? Will this be something that is ready for traditional publishing, if that is your goal? As a coach, you can probably achieve most of your goals through self-publishing, but if you have other aspirations, they can talk you through that. So you can either do that, or to plug the things that I've been working on, we have the Reedsy blog, which is loads of blog posts which will basically walk you through the process. Actually, it's tremendously easy to self-publish a book.
Yeah.
If you want to put something up on Amazon that is effectively published, you can do it this afternoon. But there are little things you want to do to make sure, A, it looks professional, B, it reaches the people you want it to reach, and is set up in such a way that it will convert, that when people land on your page, they will want to buy. But getting that product humming in the first place is, I think, the first step. If that doesn't work, if your book is not good enough for people to want to review it and to recommend it to others, then it will die on the vine, no matter how much advertising spend you put behind it.
Yeah, for sure. Again, I say that quite a lot. People are surprised that they can't just pop their book on Amazon and people will buy it. And there's lots of statistics, isn't there, around how many books go on Amazon every year. I think 4 million was the last number.
The number
I
is
heard,
absolutely exploding. Like with AI generated stuff these days, like we've seen the number like double or triple in the last couple of years. In Canada, they give away free ISBNs. The government does.
Yeah, lucky them.
Yeah, lucky them. But it went from, you had to go contact them 2 weeks in advance to get your ISBN, and their waiting time has gone to 2 months, which I think gives you a good indication of how many requests they're getting through. And I'm pretty sure they won't be giving away free ISBNs for long, because there are content mills out there just churning books. And so there's so much stuff online that it's just even more important that you find some way to stand out and to prove that, by the way, this is a work generated by a human just like you and me.
Yeah. It's again, it's that AI as a tool to help you in your process is incredibly valuable. But actually nowadays, particularly for the market that a lot of my listeners are in, you are competing against that AI slop. And so, connecting with your voice, being human, having it as something that is valuable to the clients that maybe can't afford coaching or as a stepping stone offer is so incredibly important.
Yeah, all that written content is, getting better and better. So actually, as you say, having that unique voice is critical. And I want to say, as time goes on, putting your face to stuff will become even more important as well, because that's the one thing you can't currently replicate perfectly. People will want to make sure they have that connection, which is perfect for the coaching industry. I know a lot of authors would love this idea of being able to get out there and reach readers without necessarily having to reveal themselves, without having to put themselves on the line. But any sort of artistic or personal endeavor, I think in the next few years, you will have to put yourself out there or be accused of being a cheerful bot.
Yeah, absolutely. We all want more humanity in our lives, don't we? We want it to be handmade, handcrafted by a person
Yeah.
in a kind of cottage by the sea, and to believe that that's the thing, not somebody kind of sitting there with a laptop and an AI LLM of choice,
Yeah.
churning out some old rubbish.
Yeah, we want to believe in the dream of the Etsy book of like
Yes.
someone like sitting by a fire writing their books.
I know, it's such a beautiful dream, isn't it? I don't think I've written a single word sitting by a fire.
No,
It's
yeah.
mostly been very early in the morning on the laptop.
Swearing at your Wi-Fi connection, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I suppose the other thing, sort of thinking more generally about content, is obviously Reedsy Live has been established for ages and has a whole wealth of variety on there. How do you come up with the content that you're going to put on there?
Because there's the Reedsy Live element, which is our live webinars that we put on every other week. And to be fair, like to sort of pull back the curtains, I'm a little bit slapdash with all of that. I think a lot of what people enjoy from those is sort of a personal connection, being able to, from wherever they are in the world, feel like they're part of the publishing conversation. So by virtue of just being online, letting them chat in the chats and bringing on an editor can make them feel like, they're living in New York City. So from that side of things, I don't think about it too hard. But on the other side, I have realized over time exactly where the interests of our author community lies. For example, we have thought, we'll bring on a sort of well-known author guest. Recently, we had on Lev Grossman, who wrote the Magician's books, which is sort of seen as a sort of slightly more grown-up Harry Potter and University meets C.S. Lewis. And we thought, fantastic, like there'll be so many fans who will love this, and his fans definitely turned up in spades, but the general community actually wasn't so keen on that. And so over that time of finding all that, I've been able to see through open rates on my newsletters and live turn up for this sort of thing, like what they're into. And so I've sort of found over time that anything that specifically helps them in this moment with writing and publishing, I'm not, I don't want to say that they're all self-centered and only care about what's coming to them, but they come to us because they are writers. Anything that helps them get closer to having that draft written, that helping their manuscript become a little bit better, helping them thrive in the publishing world, is the stuff that works. So being able to send out 8 years worth of newsletters and seeing what works, and then seeing who turns up live and what the feedback is, has been really valuable on that front. It's made me, made it easier for me to book stuff, because I know I don't have to go try and convince Stephen King to be on our webinars to do well. Sometimes just bringing an editor who has some specific takeaways is helpful. We've discovered that the things that our users' apps really, really love when they come to a webinar like this are like takeaways. Offering up the slide deck or a worksheet at the end is like something that feels like incredible value to them. So listening to see what exactly delights them has been helpful as well, to help us sort of put together the program of our live events.
Yeah. Again, the synergies between authorship and running a coaching practice never cease to amaze me. Which is very fortuitous, because I was lucky enough to have been in the independent author community for about a decade before I launched my practice. So it gave me a bit of a head start. But you say all of the things and they're exactly the same. So when you're running a coaching practice, again, it's your list, your community solves the problem that they're coming up against, and it is often those little things, and then gathering that data and refining and learning and as you go. So I love the synergies there.
Yeah, it's like you can get really deep in the weeds and really analyze all the data, which people far more rigorous than I will have done that. And sometimes I think that could potentially lead you astray. The numbers can lie to you, whereas I try to see it all as sort of a problem-solving puzzle, where hopefully, you can use your human brain to figure out, put yourself in their boots and try to figure out from what you see, what could be, the human element of what they want and how you can deliver it. And that's always a very satisfying thing, more so than, digging through stats and trying to pull together as many hypotheses as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I was on a call earlier today and someone was saying to me about like content strategy and for how I kind of organize my newsletter and my social posts and all that. And I said, well, honestly, on a Monday or a Tuesday, I go for a walk And then whatever's on my mind that's interesting, maybe it's something I've read or a podcast I've listened to, I'll kind of dictate some words that will go into the newsletter about that. And then that will form the content strategy for the next couple of weeks of all the social posts. And actually that connects much better because it's real time, it's real me. And then sort of the automations kind of sit beneath that. And sometimes I'm sure there's a way to have a proper, lovely spreadsheet with lots of, like you say, analytics.
Once you go into that,
it.
you realize like, oh, well, it's Valentine's Day next week, so I got to do something on Love Day. Yeah. Oh, it's going to be the World Cup final, so I should definitely do something that relates to that. Yeah, you can go down that rabbit hole. But turns out on those days, some minor musing that you've had on something that's only tangentially related to your core business is the thing that really, really takes off. Is that they just want, with content these days, they just want to connect with the person, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I find linking that back to the book, a lot of me is in the books that I write. So there's a lot of kind of examples of real life that bring the concepts that I'm talking about to life, hopefully. And the ones that come from me and my experiences are always the ones that resonate most with the readers.
Yeah. Yes, that's the thing. Like, the more specific you get, the more universal everything becomes.
Yeah.
The danger there is always thinking, I want this to sort of appeal to a broader group of people. So any reference I have needs to be universal. Yeah, vagaries put people to sleep so much. Whereas, if they can get a sense of who you are through the specifics of what you say, your references, and like the stories you tell, that's the stuff that connects.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I know Reedsy is an incredibly busy organisation and you're an incredibly busy man. What's coming up for both of you in the coming months?
Well, there's a few things sort of happening for me. Well, it's the summer months. So we're buckling down, getting ready for what used to be the National Novel Writing Month. But
no one can decide what to call it now.
Yeah, and there are so many competing ones that, I think we've decided we're not going to try to be the ones that have absorbed the whole brand of it, but a lot of people have gotten used to writing their manuscript in November. So we're putting up some challenges around that with potential prizes just to sort of make it a little bit, give some stakes to the whole thing for people who need that. We're also in the process of relaunching Reedsy Discovery, which is our editorial reviews platform. So that's quite exciting. So one of the big problems that a lot of authors will run into when they publish their first book is they need reviews. If you're selling on Amazon, ideally you need user reviews, so people who have read your book to then do it so you have an aggregated star review. But very often it's hard to get editorial reviews. So if you're Brandon Sanderson, there's a chance that the New York Times might review your book. If you're anyone else, the chances of broadsheet coverage is pretty remote. So
slightly less.
Yeah, like pretty low, but you can access this. And so we're relaunching our editorial review platform, which we call Reedsy Discovery, bringing in experienced professional editors and allowing pretty much any author to access the kind of reviewers who'd be interested in their kind of book and to get that editorial review so it's ready on their Amazon page or their Kobo page from day one. So that is coming very soon. So we're going to be working on new content for that, bringing on some of our reviews for videos, for example, talking to happy authors from the past and show exactly how this new product can be used. So that'll keep us on the busy side. And then on a personal side, it's the height of summer. So me and my wife are going on holiday next week. So
I'm so jealous.
Just getting out of this, I work remote. A lot of us working remote these days. So anytime we get to leave the house is positively a win.
Yes, it's lovely to be able to take a little bit of time away over the summer. I'm very jealous of your trip.
Are you going anywhere? Is this revealing too much to your audience?
Oh, no. I talk about all this stuff all the time. I don't have children, so I'm going away in September.
Nice. Classic.
So, yeah, I do the May and September time. So I'm going to Salisbury in September. Going to Downton Abbey. I'm very excited.
Oh, is that Highclere House or something? Is it?
Highclere Castle it's called in real life. And they've got like a 1920s themed day. And so into that. So
that's very exciting. Yeah, I live up in Scotland and we have no shortage of castles with theme days.
No, I love a castle.
Yeah, can't well, come up to Scotland because you can't go 20 minutes without tripping over some pile.
Yes, I definitely need to get another trip to Scotland. Martin, thank you so much for your time. I've really appreciated all the information you shared with us. Can you
Absolute
tell
pleasure,
us?
Helen. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. And as I say, thank you for being the first author services provider. Where can people find you and Reedsy's services online?
Well, yeah, we managed to secure the website, Reedsy.com. So you can head there and find everything we have to offer, from editors, book cover designers, to our free book writing and formatting tools, to my live webinars. I also have a YouTube channel, so go to YouTube and check out Reedsy. You can see what I look like. Yeah. Prepare.
Oh, I've got one last question.
Oh,
I
yeah.
forgot. This is a very important strategic question. You have the best thumbnails on YouTube with all the facial expressions and like you get dressed up. Where do they come from?
Oh, I've, for a man in my 40s, I've got too much of a costume cupboard here. But every time we sort of need something, I put it on the company card. So I've got a stack of fake mustaches and wigs. So yeah, if that is in line with your brand, I encourage you to invest in some stick-on mustaches.
Absolutely. And I highly recommend everyone go to the YouTube channel and subscribe for all the amazing content, but also for the thumbnail. Martin, thank you so much. That's been brilliant.
Thank you.
So many useful tips in there. Reedsy are a fantastic organisation that I highly recommend. Next week, we have an interview episode and I'll be joined by Claire Pedrick, whose book Simplifying Coaching has just had a second edition. I'll see you for the next chapter. Thank you for joining me today. You can get the show notes and your free guide to publishing options at coachwrite.co.uk. Remember to subscribe and leave a review on your podcatcher of choice. Your words can make a difference. A review can too. If you'd like to connect, find me on LinkedIn, O'Neill Helen. That's O'Neill, ONEILL, or on Instagram at coach_write. I'll see you for the next